Hey, this is Brian Stillman. I'm with BeTerrific, and we're here at NAB 2019 in New York City at the Jacob Javits Convention Center. If you're just tuning in, you missed us walking the floor, checking out all sorts of cool gear. But you are here as we talk to Larry Chernoff from MTI Film. It's cutting-edge post-production technology. It's film restoration. It's really from sort of glass-to-glass stuff, right?
Yeah, we call it set to screen.
Okay.
Depending on what you're doing. I mean, we have two applications. One of the software applications is called Cortex, and that's a software application that tries to satisfy many operations from the set to screen. Okay. So we do dailies as an example, but we also do IMF deliveries, DCP deliveries, and everything in between through its foundation as a transcoding system.
Well, when you talk about doing all those different functions, what exactly is MTI doing? So I've got my production. How are we bringing you in, and
Sure.
How are we utilizing your services?
Well, again, we do two things. We're a software developing company, and we're also a service company. From the service side, we do post-production mostly for television episodic. So we do a variety of television shows for a variety of different producers.
Right.
Notably, we're doing a show called The Politician right now, which is a Ryan Murphy production. Fantastic show if you have an opportunity to see it. And a variety of other shows. On the software side,
Right.
we start literally on the set with something called Cortex DIT. Cortex DIT is designed to create the color correction on set, do the synchronization, and do some outputs as well to DNX and favorite type of deliverables for dailies.
Okay.
But it goes all the way up from our additions are Cortex DIT, Cortex Dailies, Cortex Enterprise, Cortex QC. So there's a variety of different editions that do different functions, but the Enterprise version does everything.
How long has MTI Film been doing this? How long have you been involved in the industry?
Over 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were the first company to develop something called digital film restoration, and that's a product called DRS Nova. DRS Nova has been around for 30 years, literally. And like I said, the very first software package to attempt to do digital film restoration.
How did you get into that? You know, I mean, obviously, looking around at these old movies, deterioration is going to be part of the film, part of the film stock. What made you say, okay, this is something I want to tackle?
Well, it's a long story. I'll try to encapsulate it short. So basically, it started off with two professors at Brown University who develop algorithms. Right. And one of the professors had a friend, a college friend, whose name is Jay Cassidy, Academy Award nominee Jay Cassidy, film editor. Okay. And he observed some of the technology that they were developing for industry and said, that's interesting, this high-resolution stuff you're doing. I bet you it would apply to film restoration. That's literally 30 years ago. And as a result of that, they took one of their PhD students, Kevin Manbeck, who's now our CTO, and he developed the first algorithms for removing dirt and scratches automatically.
What are some of the films that you've worked on in terms of that level of restoration?
In terms of servicing, we've literally done hundreds, maybe thousands of films. Our software is used worldwide, from China to
Is
London.
there a favorite film that you worked on that you said, that's the one, I'm proud that we brought that particular film back?
Well, sure. I mean, we worked on Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh, well, no small picture.
Well, some of the more notable ones would be Lawrence of Arabia, Bridge on the River Kwai. Sure. These are films that had some intrinsic film problems, and we were able to solve them. And the studio was very happy about that.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but there's been literally hundreds of films,
right.
and every one of them's a gem.
Now, you started as an editor originally.
That's right.
And moved into the sort of bigger post-production world. Talk to me a little bit about your career and about that transition, going from that very, literally cutting the film to moving into this more higher level, really...
I wouldn't call it higher level.
Not higher level,
different level. But anyway, I get the idea. So I actually was born here in New York City. Right. Grew up on the Upper West Side and had an interest in filmmaking as a young boy. Went to the School of Visual Arts here, graduated, and started my film editing career at a place called Editing Concepts, which was a commercial editing house. Did my assistant work there, became an editor, and then moved out to California when I was about 23 years old. And from there, partnered with a couple of guys. We created Film Corps, Encore, Riot, a number of different companies, and ultimately I became the business guy. Okay. When we sold that business to a company called Ascent Media, which eventually was purchased by Deluxe, we then moved on and I joined MTI as its CEO.
The technology involved in it's all moving so quickly. We're seeing so many developments in terms of just what computers can do, what we can do in terms of AI, things like that. Where do you see the industry going in terms of what you work on, in terms of what MTI is doing?
Well, that's a great question. We investigate AI specifically for film restoration.
Sure.
But the fact of the matter is you need to build a tremendous library, and that could take years to do. And I'm just too old for that. But in all seriousness, building a library does take time, and you have to have a lot of cooperation. So there is a future in AI with film restoration.
Right.
I think, however, relying on it is not a good idea, and continuing to develop traditional algorithms is where we're at the moment.
How much of the film restoration is art versus science? I mean, I imagine a lot of it is subjective. It's not just technically
that
restoring.
is such a good question. So much of what we do can be just technical,
right?
But there's great artistry involved in film restoration, particularly when you have an artist who really understands the entire tool set and can apply the right tools at the right time, in concert sometimes and sometimes individually. A great artist, a great film restoration artist, is somebody who really understands a great number of tools, not just my tool set, but a great number of tools outside, and is able to determine which tool to utilize for that problem.
Now, obviously, the amount of restoration needed is going to sort of play a role in this answer, but generally speaking, when something like, say, Lawrence of Arabia comes in, how much time do you spend bringing something like that back to life? Is it? I imagine
that was
a
very unusual film.
Oh, okay. I happen to pick the one.
Yeah, that took a year.
Oh, really?
It took us a year,
right?
And we weren't the only ones working on it. That was a complex film.
Okay.
We had some unique problems where the film was cracked because it was out in the sun.
Oh, wow.
So about 15 to 20% of the film literally had like a thumbprint crack on it, on the negative. So we had to come up with a special algorithm, and that took time to fix that. And it went through a lot of testing. Right. And the result was brilliant, but it took us months to develop that.
What's the software doing then? Is it looking at... I mean, okay, I can understand if there's degradation to the image quality or whatever, but cracked negatives, thumbprints, what's it doing to fix that?
Well, that is a special case where we had to literally develop the algorithm to fix that. Generally speaking, you run into problems such as color fading, flicker, dirt, scratch. Right. Those are the traditional type of issues that come up, and our tool set addresses all of that, obviously.
Right.
And then what we've been trying to focus on mostly recently is, I'm going to give you an explanation, and I'm going to again try to be very brief.
Sure.
I want you to think of a film vault as being shale rock.
Okay.
And that what's in the rock is oil. And what you need is technology to be able to get that oil out.
Okay.
And it's similar in film restoration or in film vaults. Film vaults all over the world have hundreds of thousands of films. But the amount of money required to take those films out of the vault and fix them is just too much for most countries, and certainly for most governments that are in the third world, even though they have hundreds and maybe even thousands of films. So what we're trying to do is develop technology that will get that oil out of the vault and allow these countries to preserve their film history, which is very important. It's part of their legacy to their future generations as to the art form that their high movie directors and producers produced over time. That's our objective, automation.
Well, it's admirable. Like you say, film is our legacy. I know anyone out there who's a film fan appreciates the work that you're doing in that area. Larry, thanks so much for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Having a good NAB? You enjoying
It's
it?
terrific so far.
So far?
BeTerrific.
Nice
to see you.
Terrific. Stick around. We've got more continuing coverage coming to you from NAB New York. And check out BeTerrific.com for that, but also BeTerrific Tech, where you can check out the Agility Quadricep, which is our new display panel. It's flexible, it's light, it's easy to install, daylight bright, perfect for all your needs. We'll have more for you. I'm Brian Stillman. Stick around.